Hi, I'm Jill with Image Matters. So, what's the deal with, filler words? No one is immune to the ever-present filler word, especially my generation, myself included. These words add nothing to our speech, so why do we bother using them? These useless words tend to show up in our speech when we are more nervous than usual, but they are increasingly becoming a part of our day-to-day conversation. Everyone has their own version. We all know the typical filler words, like, and However, people are getting creative and coming up with their own. Let me give you an example. I was sitting in one of my classes, listening to a classmate of mine give a presentation over a wedding dress line she had created. Throughout her presentation, she continued adding the phrase, or whatever, to the ends of her sentences. Not only did she come across as uncertain and not confident in the product she had designed, she seemed less intelligent. It was so bad the professor eventually had to stop her in the middle of her presentation and point it out. Other filler words include actually, honestly, basically, just, so, the list goes on and on. Just because you aren't using the typical filler words does not mean you're not using them. Once you've identified your own filler words, it's time to stop using them. Here are some tips. Most often, people use filler words when they would normally take a pause. People feel uncomfortable pausing while speaking, but a pause will always seem longer to the speaker than it does to the listener. Don't be afraid to pause. Like is probably the most often used filler word, and it has gradually seeped into our conversations in ways that people don't even recognize it as a filler word anymore. When quoting a conversation, it is incorrect grammar to say, she was like, for she said or she asked. Keep in mind that the only two ways to use the word like is when you are talking about enjoyment, I like ice cream, or similarities, this tastes like chicken. When you are tempted to your way through a sentence, breathe in. Again, this may sound like a pause, but it's better to take a pause than to use a filler word. If you have to give a speech, practice in front of a friend. Have them give you a visual signal, such as raising their hand every time you use a filler word. Being aware of how often you use these words will make it easier to cut them from your speech. Eliminating filler words will make you sound more confident and more intelligent, so take these tips and put them to use.